Hi, everyone. My name is Ebony, also known as Professional Homegirl, and we would like to thank you all so much for joining us today for our dialogues on From Likes to Legacy, transforming your social media to a viable business. This session will dive into the world of social media monetization with top media personalities, influencers, and talent execs. So, with that being said, can each of our panelists introduce themselves?
I'll go first. Hi, my name is Rita. I'm known as Lil Sazon Packet Online. I am a content creator as well as a social media manager.
I guess I'll go next. My name is Alexandra Butler, known online as the MUA Alex. I am a celebrity makeup artist turned lifestyle influencer, if you will. Yeah, I like that.
Yes.
I'm Paul Luckenball. I'm a talent manager at Select Management Group, where we work with leading digital talent across the space in 360-degree management, looking at their social business as well as businesses on and off the platforms.
Brandon, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Hey, everybody. Brandon Butler, founder and CEO of Butter ATL. We're a media company based in Atlanta, Georgia, that does the things that celebrate all things Atlanta culture, and also partner and chief culture and innovation officer at a creative agency called Majority, based here in Atlanta.
All right. Thank you all so much. And to the audience, if you have any questions, please make sure to put it in the chat because we will have a Q&A towards the end. So do not be shy. Now, to the panelists, can each of you share with us how you got started in the social media space and what was the initial spark that led you to pursue your path?
Who wants to
go first? Hey, Rita, you go first, Rita.
All right, I'll go first. So what started me out as being a content creator was before that I was into acting. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that especially for people of color, there was very much stereotypical roles. And I didn't want to be included in that. I wanted to branch something out and make something of myself that wasn't outside of playing like what I saw for Latinos. A lot of the roles were just kind of very similar. And so
right
into social media and was like, well, I'm going to create my own space. And it took, I want to say, about 8 years to look like an overnight success. And now, thankfully, I've grown a platform. I have, hundreds of thousands of followers that I'm very grateful for. And now I've turned around to want to be able to help others learn the tips and tricks to be able to do it for themselves as well.
Thank you, Rita. Paul?
Yeah, so I got my start in entertainment more in the theater space and knew that I kind of wanted to switch gears and get out of that side of the business. And I loved watching YouTubers back in the days before Instagram and TikTok were even a thing. And, similar to Rita, I really found a lot of passion from watching creators like Tyler Oakley, Gigi Gorgeous, in the LGBTQ plus space and just using their platform to really make change and share some visibility. And found out through watching Tyler Oakley's documentary that there is a job called a talent manager that works with these people and really helps support the business side of what they're doing. And now I work in a company that works with both of those creators. So that's kind of what got my spark and passion with wanting to help creators use their voices for good.
Nice. Brandon?
Yeah, my background's in tech, and I spent the first half of my career, building apps and websites, and it kind of put me right at the forefront of what we used to call that whole digital space, but also as social kind of came online. So I remember when Facebook was the Facebook, and was just getting started on that, helping build out, Facebook pages, even Facebook applications for different, media companies, radio, TV stations over the years. So I was able to kind of turn my technical knowledge into, development knowledge around social. And it just got me so immersed in the platforms. I learned more about ads and marketing and what kind of content worked. And so it was just kind of a natural progression, but it definitely has a very much tech kind of background to it.
And last but not least, Alex.
Hello. So I started out as a degreed industrial engineer, and I knew early on that with that degree, as good at math and science as I was, that wasn't something I wanted to pursue as a career. So I taught myself how to do makeup. And I showcased that on YouTube back in the day when it was before Instagram, before TikTok. And I kind of just created an audience, I guess, that fell in love with my personality and the things that I was so vulnerable about. And so with that makeup being a part of who I was, I kind of kicked it off as being an influencer by showcasing how I did things behind the scenes with makeup. When I was with different celebrities or on television shows or movie sets, I would take the camera with me. And so it was kind of like people loved the makeup part of it, but they also loved the vulnerability of the influencer part of it. And so with that, I was able to get different brand deals because, as you know, brands love the skill, but they want people with personality. So I was able to showcase that. And from that, it has been amazing since.
Amazing. Now, Brandon, when it comes to building connections, how did you establish your connection with the Atlanta community through Butter ATL? And how important are local connections in building a strong social media presence?
Yeah, I mean, I remember in the early days of building Butter, I always would tell the team there's kind of like three parts of building a narrative. There's the idea of kind of the origin story, there's the shared experience, and the kind of the why it matters now components, right? So when you think about origin stories, right, like we all know how Spider-Man got his powers. He got bit by a spider. I think, you know, when it comes to Atlanta, there are a lot of origin stories around the culture of Atlanta that some people know, some people don't. Some people kind of, you know, speak to. And so we made it a point to kind of make sure that, you know, some of our content told those, you know, origin stories around different parts of Atlanta culture so that people kind of understand how we got here. When it came to, you know, shared experiences, we also did the same thing. There were just experiences in Atlanta that we can all speak to, you know, whether it was the Falcons losing the Super Bowl or Snowpocalypse from a few years ago. You can kind of ask people in Atlanta, you know, where were you at when this happened? And we all kind of shared that moment. And then why it matters now, again, just in the context of all the things that are going on in the world and politics, and also just Atlanta's kind of importance on a global cultural stage. We try to highlight content like that. So for us, it was kind of a mix and cadence of those kind of, you know, three types of content, because to us, you know, the combination of all those different kind of content really kind of, you know, defines what we kind of call culture. And our definition of culture at Butter is people like us do things like this. And so a lot of the content that you see on Butter kind of, you know, reflects elements of the content that people can relate to and really feel like, you know, that's something that, you know, I as a ATLian, as we kind of call ourselves, you know, do as well. And that kind of makes people authentically connect to the platform in lots of different ways.
I like that, Brandon. People like us do things like this. That's fire. Now, Alex, as a celebrity makeup artist, what significant challenges have you faced in monetizing your social media, and how did you overcome them?
So I feel as though we all are super busy. We live lives on social media. We live lives just personally. And I feel like the biggest challenge that I seem to have faced in my career, I've been doing this for almost 15 years now, has been to try to establish a work-life balance. I can remember just growing up, having my mother be an entrepreneur. It was always the hustle mentality of getting it out the mud, sleep when you did, all those things that we know. And I kind of felt like a burnout was coming as I was doing all these things. I was doing makeup. I was teaching classes. For years, I taught classes, hundreds of classes, 25 plus cities each year, and went on tour with Missy Elliott as her personal makeup artist. And as I started to experience burnout, I didn't know what that meant and how that looked. And so it was a challenge for me because it was new to me. So I had my grandmother, who I moved here from St. Louis, which is where I'm from, and I took care of her as a caregiver. And then the pandemic hit in 2020. And so those two things kind of made me focus on trying to figure out, how do I take care of myself? Because that's a challenge that you oftentimes run into when you're such a busy person, when you're somebody that's providing for your family. And so with that, I've been able to, since 2020, hone in on self-care really big, pouring in others in the community, because that's another thing. We have a responsibility not only for ourselves, but for those that are coming up behind us. And so with the classes I taught, with the mentees that I had a huge responsibility, but I had a lot on my back. And so since then, using social media, I've been able to develop this healthy lifestyle that has attracted so many people that I would have never even thought would have came to my page, and just showcasing how I take care of myself, and then giving tips and tricks to others that can help them almost take care of themselves. And so every day I get a story from somebody that I'm inspiring them or that I'm encouraging them to go out and walk their neighborhood. And so through social media, I have been able to kind of take this platform of just makeup to be more of like a lifestyle of more of like, how can we better ourselves, not just for ourselves, but for everybody else that's around us.
Yes, Alex, listen, you made a lot of good points, because that is something that I am experiencing in the moment, which is, you know, trying to find that balance between you know, my brand, the Professional Home Girl, and also just, you know, my personal life because I want to be outside. So with that being said, Rita, what practical tips can you offer to inspiring influencers and entrepreneurs who are just starting out in the social media monetization? Because it can be a lot.
Mira, let me give you like the 3 biggest things that have blessed my life. 1, don't compare your journey to nobody else's.
Facts.
I think a lot of times we see somebody go viral and we think automatically it takes. Don't get me wrong, it can take one video to change your life. But sometimes some of these people have been doing this for years, and all you saw was the one video that went viral, and you're thinking, oh, it's as simple as that. Don't look to the left, don't look to the right.
Right.
Focused on your platform. And then second thing I would say is consistency. That's another thing. I know a lot of times people get, you know, between your work life, your personal life, your social media, it's a lot. It can be mentally draining, emotionally draining. It could be too much. But the truth is, especially if you have a business or if you have something that you're trying to say to the public, you have to be consistent in your posting. You have to be consistent in your message and who you are. And the third tip I would say is you have to block out the hate. You're going to get it. It is not something that you can avoid. People are going to have their opinions. My slogan for my page is argue with your therapist. Because, period. Because at the end of the day, people are going, they just have, a lot of times people have a lot of negative things to say. But you're going to, just like what Alex said, you're going to find a lot of people who are blessed by you, who the way that you carry yourself and being personal on your page really resonates with others. And so that would be my main things for anybody who's aspiring to be a content creator. You have to be consistent. This isn't something that you could post once every month and then wonder why your platform isn't taking off. And then don't worry about the views and the likes. They'll start off small in the beginning, but eventually you'll develop a fan base that is solidified by not only how consistent you are, but how real you are on your platform.
Yeah, so Paul, Rita and Alex made some good points when it comes to practical tips. So once a social media presence is established, what strategies do you recommend for sustaining and growing? And how can one effectively scale their online business?
Yeah, Rita and Alex had great points, and I feel like I will echo a lot of that, where it's don't look left and right.
Yeah.
The creators that I work with, and part of what I love about my job is that each person that I work with has a different strategy and different goals, and like it's really tailoring what you want and like knowing what you want. And again, to like echo what Rita said, staying consistent is really, really important. Like making sure that you're there and people, your followers know that you're going to be there and not like disappear for 3 months or whatever it is. That consistency, it's really about forming that relationship with your audience. But a little side to that is also like, you have to be open to change. You have to be willing to adapt on like this digital landscape. Everything changes so quickly. And on a more micro level, there's like the trends, like a trend that was popular 3 months ago is like nobody's doing it anymore. It's like cringy if you do it. And you see a lot with like marketing ads where they're trying to get on the trend, but they like do it too late and it's past, the time is past and it's weird. But then on a more macro level too, it's like keeping up with the platforms. I started working before like Instagram and TikTok really were a huge thing. And we had a lot of creators that were used to the long form YouTube content. And they were like, I don't really want to focus on this short form stuff. Like, it's not fun to me. I just like the long YouTube videos. And now like TikTok is such a huge presence. Short form is such a huge presence. So really it's staying on top of not only the micro trends, but those macro, like where the audience is going, like what is popular right now. So, and just being adaptable to that change is really helpful. And then on scaling a business as well, it's don't be afraid to say no. Like not every opportunity is going to be right for you. And that's also what I'm here to help people do, is like give that opportunity to say no. Like, does this brand actually that you want to work with, is like, are they paying you enough? First off, but also, does it fit what you're doing? Does it fit in when the content that you're doing does align with your goals? Like keeping all of that in mind. So don't be afraid to say no to opportunities, because that helps solidify what your goals are too, by like saying no to the noise.
Yes, Paul, that's a great point. All money is not good money, right?
Yep.
Now, Brandon, I don't know if you noticed, but I have a podcast called Professional Home Girl Podcast, where I interview women of color from different walks of life, and all of my guests are anonymous. So one of the things that I'm always thinking about, or probably overthinking, is what is going to be the next conversation. So how do you keep your content fresh and innovative in a constantly evolving digital market?
Yeah, absolutely. And congratulations, obviously, on the podcast. I just actually launched my own podcast called Butternomics through iHeart, and that's actually, part of our kind of strategy for keeping our content fresh. And so, in the beginning, again, Butter really leaned in on Instagram and social media, and then we kind of expanded out into other platforms. The big kind of second platform that we expanded out into was email. Just knowing how content gets throttled on social media, it was always a big objective of mine from the very beginning to kind of build an email list just as big as our follower list, so that we could still find ways to get in contact with our contacts. And so we kind of did that as a way to kind of expand out. And then the podcast that we're doing now is kind of another expansion. So I'd say, definitely, evolution and change is kind of, part of keeping your content fresh. But one of the frameworks that I like to kind of use when it comes to just thinking about, fresh kind of content and bucketing up is this idea of candy, vitamins, and painkillers. I always kind of say there's three kinds of content. There's candy, vitamins, and painkillers, right? The candy content, we all know what that is. It's the fun stuff. It's the memey stuff. It's the jokes. It's the, very casual kind of simple content. And the thing about it is, candy content is fun, but, just like in real life, if all you do is consume candy, you'll rot your teeth out, and it'll kind of also put you in the same spot. It can also limit you. If people only see you as a comedian or somebody that's not ever serious, it's hard to kind of get into other opportunities or the brand deals, right? And so, you want to kind of have a mix of that. When it comes to vitamins, I always kind of say vitamins kind of remind me of the Gary Vee content. I can tell you to hustle every day long and you sleep when you're dead, but sooner or later you got to do the work. Like sooner or later you got to get checked in, right? And just like with vitamins, you can work out and you can take vitamins all day, but sooner or later you kind of got to go back and measure and see, are they being successful and helpful, because vitamins kind of add incremental value as long as you're doing the work behind it. And then there's painkillers. Like painkillers solve a problem. And I think there's content that's painkillers that solve a problem as well. What I always tell people is I don't have an issue with you making candy, vitamins, or painkillers, but I think a lot of people make candy content and confuse it as painkiller content. So my advice would be, again, realize what kind of content that you need to make. Have a good mix of all three. You can be fun, you can be silly, because Butter does all those things. Butter has some posts where very like specific. We're trying to solve a problem. We try to add lots of value. We have other posts we just sit here, kind of joke around, but I think it's a mix of having all those things that allow us to kind of stay fresh and allows us to have lots of different conversations and meet people where they're at. And so, I would advise people to, again, think about candy, vitamins, and painkillers, but then also be willing to expand your content across different forms and platforms. Like I said, with us, we start off on Instagram, expand to email. We've done long form video as well, and now we're doing podcasts. And so all those things in combination kind of allow us to stay fresh, and it allows us to kind of, update the algorithm a lot, right, too, so that you continue to kind of stay in front of your audience and make sure that your stuff doesn't get throttled and always gets served out in front of everybody.
Oh, that was great advice, Brandon. I always say put the medicine in the candy.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Now, Alex, what keeps you motivated and inspired on your journey, especially during tough times? Because you spoke about earlier going through a burnout, and then also being a caregiver for your grandmother. So how do you stay motivated through it all?
So I have a really, really good relationship with God. I'm not a religious person per se, but I'm very spiritual in understanding that God is in control ultimately. Once you kind of realize that a lot of the things that you have going on in your life, you do not have control over, and to just give it to him, it kind of puts an ease at you. So for me, understanding that I've learned in the business not to take things personal, that's a huge thing for me, because it allows you to stay in your own bubble, to focus on yourself. A lot of the times, like Rita was saying, if you look left, you look right, you'll kind of lose your motivation, you'll lose inspiration, you'll take things personal that have nothing to do with you, when all the while the main focus and goal should be to just focus on what you can control, and then everything else leave it to God. So that's been a big motivator for me, as well as having people that are really, really good around me. I have a really good circle of friends. I have an amazing husband. I have amazing family, and they pour into me. I don't allow social media to be that for me. Because social media ebbs and flows depending on what day of the week it is. So when you have a good circle around you, when you have a good support system around you, when you have a very good relationship with God or whatever you pray to around you, that can kind of keep you motivated, and it can keep you inspired to do better things for yourself. So on this journey of self-care and self-love, it's allowed me to focus on what I really, really want, what I really, really need in my life, and I've been able to block out and separate the things that are not good for me or that are not helping me or just don't need to be there. So it's going to take a big, uncomfortable conversation sometimes with yourself to figure out exactly what needs to stay and what needs to go. But as we get older, as we grow, you know, I'm going to be a very ripe and beautiful 41 in a few weeks.
Come on, 41. Come on now.
20, I heard. Yes, it is. So on this journey, it has been so eye-opening about what's for me is for me and what's not for me is not for me. And so that motivation keeps me going every day. It keeps me looking forward to things that I have in my life every day. It keeps me counting my blessings and staying positive all day, every day.
Yes, give it up for God. That's what I'm talking about, Alex.
So,
Now, Rita, what advice would you give to those who are hesitant to take the leap into monetizing their social media or who need encouragement to keep moving forward?
I would say, here's the thing, right? I truly believe that you don't want to live a life of regret. You don't know what a video can do for your life. And so, like, if you look at what's on social media, sometimes I'm sure we've all watched a video that we're like, are you serious? Like, I'm going to say, for example, the Hawk tour that went viral all over the place, right? It took, all she said was Hawk tour and then changed her whole life. So if all it takes is for you to post that video, stop thinking about, I think a lot of times we think, I don't know, my family doesn't find it funny or whatever. We just get in our own way when it comes to social media. When the next thing you could do is just post it and see what happens. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And sometimes it may not work in the moment. Like for example, I'll give you an example on my life. Mm-hmm. One of my most viral videos that has over 100 million views, it didn't start off blowing up right away. It took like 2 months before the video started gaining traction. If I would have deleted it or got in my head, I would have missed out on the opportunity to have one of my most viral videos. So you never know. At the end of the day, when you have a message that you believe in, you post that video, and whoever is supposed to come to it will flock to it. You never know what can happen. Don't overthink it. Don't make it more technical than it needs to be. You got 3 seconds to reel somebody in a video, because the one thing I love that Paul was saying about being adaptable is that these platforms, they change constantly. You have to be willing to change with it. You have to understand that people don't watch videos kind of like they used to, in the sense where they don't have the same kind of attention span. So we live in a generation now where it's kind of like, I want my answer and I want it now kind of thing. Right. So when it comes to your content, just post. And like Alex said, leave it to God, leave it to whatever it is that you're feeling, and see what happens after that. And if it takes off, great. If it doesn't, you keep going and being consistent, and it will take off.
Yes. So let's do some Q&A from our audience, because we are cutting in on time. So from So Left Field, their question is, what's next in social? Where can we be early? Any underrated new platforms?
I'll jump in. I mean, I think a lot of times we get caught up on the what's next, but I think the reality is there's a lot of platforms that are actually underserved. I actually, on my podcast, interviewed a gentleman a few weeks ago, and he was telling me about how, his company generates 6 figures a month from Snapchat. And, all the Snapchat ads and Snapchat shows. And like, my first reaction was, people still use Snapchat? And he was like, absolutely. And so, I think, again, it's not necessarily about, because you also don't want to be too early to the platform, because the platform needs audience. It needs to hit scale. Mm-hmm. So I would tell you a lot of the shift is right now is obviously TikTok, is great from a algorithm and explanation standpoint, but YouTube shorts are really big right now. Again, short form content, even the CEO of Instagram came on and said short form content is a new wave. They are 100% focused on that. And like I said before, Snapchat is also a very, underutilized platform in a lot of extent. So there's a lot of still platforms out there that are beyond Instagram that are actually, really viable for helping to, build and launch on.
You can make money on Facebook. You can make silly money on. And a lot of people will be like, Facebook, isn't that like the older one? No, I've made a lot of money on Facebook at certain occasions. And I'm telling people, reels, like you said, short form content, posting consistently, and you can make money on any of these platforms. But truly, it's not necessarily always about finding the new wave. It's learning how to work the ones that are already here, and mastering those, because these are the ones that might be here for the long term. There might be platforms that come and have a short spark, whereas they're like the Facebook, the Instagrams, those are the ones, even Snapchat has been around for a while, that if you learn how to monetize those, or YouTube, your money will be more consistent than something that might spark up and then, disintegrate in a few years.
Yes, let's see if we can take one more question. From Ambassador Susan Johnson Cook. If we have a YouTube channel, do we also need a podcast platform, or could we just use YouTube as our platform?
I think YouTube's.
Oh, go ahead, Paul.
I think YouTube's a really great place to have a podcast. I think it's great to have it on the podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, have them there. But the issue with podcasts and like starting a podcast is the discoverability is not so great on those podcasting platforms. So having the clips on TikTok or the full videos on YouTube, those are the platforms that allow for discoverability. You can kind of find them in the suggested or on the For You page or whatever it is. So I do think it's really important to have parts of your podcast, if it's not the whole thing, at least parts of it on these other platforms that make it a little bit easier.
Little teaser trailers.
Yeah, exactly.
And we have one time for more question. All right, from Key D Speaks. What are some good behind the scenes practices for pre-post video recording? That's a good question.
I think one would be, I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump in if somebody's about to say something, but I think that for me, it's good to be able to keep your phone near you. A lot of the times, just recording different things that you may not want to post necessarily, but just having that content, that way later on, you can edit it if you need to or add it in if you need to. Even if it's just you out and about with friends, just depending on whatever your platform is catered to. I think always recording things or taking pictures of or taking note of where you're at and what you like about it. That way later on, if you wanted to use it, you could.
I would say lighting and clarity is important in your videos also. If you're doing like content where it's short form, you want to be like kind of how we're doing this interview now, where you're the center, people can really see you. There's too many things distracting you as well. But lighting and clarity for me is a huge thing, so that people can. And also, there's an app called Captions. It's sometimes really good to have captions in your video, just because it keeps the mind engaged while people are watching the video. Again, we sometimes get distracted by things, but if you have something consistently going in your videos, and you'll see a lot of content creators do that by having the captions, it keeps the audience engaged.
Yes. And last but not least, to each of our panelists, what's the next dream or goal you're working towards in your social media ventures? What can we expect to see from each of you in the future? Starting with Paul.
I'm just excited to continue building with the roster that I have and signing new people. Really, we like to not just do the brand deals and the monetization on these platforms, but building out businesses with our creators or doing books or product lines or things like that. So really excited to just continue to grow and with the careers of everybody that I work with, and continue to start working with new and exciting people as well.
Alex?
So I don't know. That's a question I get asked a lot. And I think that it's okay not to know, because we're so quick to, want to get to the next or hustle. And right now I'm in a season of surrender and obedience. And so I'm just sitting back and waiting on God to tell me what's next. And it's pretty awesome because I can just relax and do what I got to do.
Let God be in control. I know that's right. Brandon?
What's next for me is 100% the Butternomics podcast that we just recently launched. It's funny, like working in radio was kind of one of my dream jobs growing up, and that's kind of how I actually got into digital marketing, was actually, using my tech skills to get a job, at a radio station and kind of learning the business. And so now it's a very full circle moment with this podcast opportunity, and I really want to kind of pour everything we have into it. So making Butternomics the next kind of evolution of Butter, and, giving, the amazing people, not just in Atlanta, but people that are, leveraging culture at a national scale, a platform to kind of tell their stories is kind of my main objective right now.
And last but not least, Rita?
I would say the next movement in my journey is truly being a social media manager. I've thoroughly enjoyed being a content creator and, again, building a platform and a fan base. But I don't believe you open doors to close them behind you. And so now I'm in a part of my life where I'm going to be a new mom. I'm pregnant with my first.
Congrats!
Thank you. Thank you. So now I kind of want to take a step back from being the face and help others who don't know where to start or get stagnant or feel lost in this whole grand scheme of social media, help them become the face and be able to support their businesses and feed their families or just do what they love successfully. So I'm now retreating to the background instead of being a content creator and more pushing towards having my business and helping others continue forward.
Yes, well, I think this was an amazing conversation, and I'm not just saying this because I was moderating it, but I truly learned something from each and every one of you. So please let the audience know where they can follow you at and how they can support you.
So my name is the MUA Alex. I have it listed right there. You can follow me on Instagram. I don't really tweet, but Instagram is the main source of following of me. And yeah, that's it.
Okay.
You can follow Select Management on Instagram. Our website is also select.co, just CO. And you can follow along for everything that we're doing with our creators there.
Okay. As for myself, again, my name is Rita, but I go by Lil Sasson Packet with 3 T's on Instagram and TikTok. You can always message me there because I'm going to start taking more clients now for social media management. So again, that's Lil Sasson Packet, like the little seasoning packet you have in your cabinets, on Instagram and TikTok and all major platforms.
And Brandon?
Same thing. You can find us at butter.atl on pretty much all platforms, or butteratl.com. And also, please search for Butternomics on, iHeart app, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. And please like, subscribe, and leave a comment too. That really helps out on the podcast. Leave a review. So we really appreciate it.
Yes, and you can follow me at The Professional Home Girl and at the PhD Podcast, and also listen to my podcast, The Professional Home Girl, on Black Effect Network, and you can get the audio wherever you get your audio from. So thank you all so much. And last but not least, we cannot forget to please make sure to support and follow Hope Global Forums at Hope Global Forum without the S. So thank you all once again for coming through. And also, if you enjoyed this week's conversation, please make sure to stop by next week for next week's dialogue on a home ownership dialogue, unpacking opportunities in today's housing market. You can RSVP at Hope's Global Forum bio. Also, our annual meeting is now the largest gathering in the world focused on the empowerment of the undeserved. The 2023 event reviewed by 5.1 million people in 30 plus countries. The Hope Global Forums convened the most influential leaders from government, community, and the private sector to outline a vision for the modern global economy where the benefits and opportunities of free enterprise can be extended to everyone.